wanted to really quickly go over electromagnetism and current. So what's going on when current goes through a wire, and why does it create magnetic fields, and why is DC current seemingly less efficient than alternating current, and what's going on with that. So the reason that you see a magnetic field around an object is when there's energy or matter in an object that's influencing your reality, but you cannot see that energy or that mass, which are equivalent. So anytime that an object has energy in it that's moving and you can't see that energy moving, you will be able to detect or measure some sort of magnetic field, which is the turbulence of the movement of that energy in your reality. So imagine there's like a glass bowling ball, and so you can't see that glass bowling ball, and I throw it through a pool. You will notice objects in the pool respond to the eddies and the turbulence of that glass bowling ball. And so that's kind of what's happening with magnetic fields. So when you put a 500 horsepower generator motor or something that's outputting whatever many number of watts or joules of energy into a wire, suddenly there's the mass of the wire, and then what else is in there? All that energy is in there. And so you don't see the generator, it's tucked out of sight, but you see all the movement of that generator, because all of that movement of the generator is in the wire. And so it's basically making a bunch of waves and ripples and eddies in your reality, which you see as a magnetic field. And you're moving forward into time. And most of the time when you're looking at a magnetic field, you're looking at a cylindrical wire. And so it creates this rotational right-hand rule, because the energy, as it flows through the wire, it flows along the outside of the wire, and then energy also spirals. And so as the energy spirals around the wire, it generates a right-hand rule. And so for that movement to happen, the reality has to be altered in the future to allow that movement to happen, and it also has to be altered into the past. But since you're moving forward into time, you only see the rotational energy of the movement going forward into time. There's a reverse movement, because there's no net loss. Nothing's allowed to be changed or anything in reality. There's conservation of energy. So there is an equal amount of energy moving back in the wire when you pass a current through it to balance out the thing that you've done, but it's going into the past. And so that's why there only appears to be one right-hand rule, when in fact there's multiple eddies. So there's a right-hand rule into the future and a left-hand rule into the past. Anytime you move any object through space or through time. And then when that object is larger than you can see, like the glass bowling ball, and it moves through space and time, you see its currents and eddies as a magnetic field. If you can see the whole thing as an object, you just see it like tearing up reality. Like if you were to shoot that glass cannonball through a house, you would see a right-hand rule of its sort of destruction. And you could call that the bowling ball's magnetic field, as it tore through the house and all of the stuff was going on. Or if you threw the bowling ball through a sea of foam, all the disturbance of the foam would be the magnetic, or the right-hand rule, the ball's electromagnetic effect. If you can see everything, then it just is the wake of destruction, or the turbulence of the object. If you can't see the whole object, then you're left with it being a spooky electromagnetic field, because you see the fluid medium of reality being moved by something that you can't see. And you believe in reality, and all things are fluid. So everyone perceptually believes in the ether or whatever. That's why there's magnetic fields. Even if they don't intellectually believe in the ether, which is that connection between all things. We're a big ocean. We are the ocean. There is nothing but ocean. There's nothing but energy. So there's nothing but energy moving through energy, and then if you stop being able to see certain types of energy, magnetic fields. So with the direct current, it wraps around the wire, and it's kind of loosey-goosey. If the motor's spinning at the right frequency and the wire's at the right width, then you're going to get a nice clean wrap, and then the efficiency of the direct current motor would go up, because the wire wraps, and that wrapping, as the current wraps around the conductive medium, like which is basically the membrane that the electricity is traveling on, travels along the surface of wire, so it's traveling on the membrane between the fluid that is the wire and then the air around it. So there's a change in density. Current always travels on the membrane between two densities. Whether that one density be it an ocean or water, or that density is a metal wire, both of those things are a fluid, and then the current travels on the surface of that. And so every surface has a vibration to it. So when you zoom into even a solid object like a metal wire, there's an oscillation to that wire even at rest, at the very, very atomic level or whatever. Just like you look at the surface of the ocean, and even on a calm day, there's waves. So if you pump current into it at a harmonic to that, then you get more energy back. With direct current, nobody's worrying about these harmonics, and I don't even think any of the generators are even remotely matched to the size of the wires or anything else like that in any skillful way. So it's not a very efficient means of transmission, although they do find, I think I've read that if you they have huge direct current, very high voltage wires that have a higher energy transmission rate, and that's from hitting this harmonic. When you're doing alternating current back and forth, you kind of are sending energy through a loose connection in the wire. So as the electricity is spiraling around the wire, you're not trying to get it really tight and taut, which would result in 100% energy transmission. You're actually using the slack to generate secondary waves in the wire as it goes back and forth, and then those waves add to the energy that's making it down the tube. Those energy waves they have far less drag, since they're only dragging on it's a little bit like somebody the alternating current creates waves. It rides its own waves in the wire. So alternating current basically makes the wire match the frequency of the current a little bit better, which is why you get a higher efficiency in it. Because that shifting back and forth of the electricity actually generates waves on the surface of the wire. And those, since it's generating its own waves, it's obviously in resonance with itself, so you get higher transmission rates. And then that's just what's going on with the wires themselves. And if you get like a sail, which is sort of an electromagnetic lock, which you could just make out of a magnet, or anything else that has a magnetic field that causes a physical thing to respond to slight perturbations in current. So if the wires were much thinner and like flexible, they could carry a high load of current, because you would basically hit it'd be kind of like a nodal resonant lock. So if you had a thin thing of wire that could coil and then stretch and alter and warp slightly, as you got the current up, it would match the frequency of the generator plus the frequency of the electromagnetic environment at large, and then would induce waves on the surface of the wire. And then the coiling is also another type of wave. So then that would result in extremely high energy transmission rates, and since it's sensitive to electromagnetic fields at large, it would actually start to harvest any sort of EMF disturbances in its environment, especially wind and other obviously fluid mediums. But you could do this with a really large current or a really large wire under the ground, or in any sort of medium. It's just a matter of like letting the material be flexible enough to attain that like electromagnetic lock, and then the material would actually be very strong. So this is kind of shielding. If you can get the physical material to take on the shape of the energy moving through it, it will create fundamentally an object that has the density and mass of the energy running through it. So you could have a very thin wire with like a ton of energy running through it, and that really thin wire would have the properties of like a baseball bat rather than a thread. But you either have to have a very You have to either have a very precise frequency generator, so something that's capable of generating the precise frequency of an object, or you have to have an object that's capable of molding itself to whatever frequency your generator does. And any way that you do that, then you basically make it such that the magnetic field, the invisible part of the object, matches the physical part of the object. And if they match perfectly, then you can have, you can turn energy sources that are out of sight into your shape. So you can have their magnetic field match yours, and then you get all sorts of cool stuff, like the shielding in like Star Wars and other things like that. Oh man, if you could somehow, so we gotta keep some secrets. Gotta keep some secrets.